Thank you very much for coming to the show today. So we have 4 segments we're going to go through. I am Brandon Velfrey. I am one of the instructors here at CRAS. And CRAS is short for the Conservatory Recording Arts and Sciences. So I just want to talk a little bit about what the school is about and kind of what the whole point of what our mission statement is here at the CRAS curriculum here. So when it comes down to CRAS, our mission statement is that we want to get your foot in the door in the industry. So our goal is to get an entry-level position in the audio industry. And so the audio industry, this is actually when we have, there's actually lots of facets of the audio industry, but so a few examples would be recording in a studio. So for like musicians or artists, things like that. We have what's called live sound. So that's when we're sending sound out of speakers to a live audience, hence the phrase live sound. A lot of it could be based on broadcast, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So outside of broadcast and live sound and music production, which is the recording in studios concept, we also have video game audio, right? Because that's a huge one, because video games actually make more money than the movie industry. So that's another huge concept. And then speaking of the movie industry, we also have to have audio behind our TV shows and movies. And so we need people to do that in the audio production industry too. So when it comes down to the audio industry, there is a lot of facets to it. And that's the wonderful thing about CRAS, is that you actually come here and you learn about every aspect that we have within the industry itself. And we train students in how it all works. And we even have studio etiquette classes. So not only are students using the equipment and learning the concepts and fundamentals of what we do, but they're also learning how to act professionally in the environment that we would be finding yourself in this industry. So a couple things to mention here. So a couple duties at the type of jobs that we're talking about. We have what's called an A2. And you can see I have this microphone here. I also have a belt pack microphone. Additionally, there's an extra spare microphone over here just in case. And so the engineer that helped do this today was the A2. And the A2 was here to make sure that all the equipment has been set correctly and everything that is needed is here. Otherwise, we have another position called the A1. And so the A1 is going to be the lead engineer that's actually on the console that's going to be sending signals out to either broadcast for events or things like that. And so we can see there's a visual there. So there's one of the big consoles that we have for that. And so, yeah, like we said, the A1 is going to be the engineer who is actually controlling the console and the audio signals that are going to be sent out to be heard. And it's pretty interesting because not only is there these different positions, but here at CRAS, we actually have a mobile broadcast unit. So we have a truck to help give the students the experience of being an A1 or an A2. And so we can see in the pictures here that this is the mobile broadcast unit truck. And we will take this out to different sporting events. So we'll take us out to a Diamondbacks baseball game or a Suns basketball game, or we even brought to NASCAR events. And what's really awesome is that the companies that actually help do the broadcast will allow us to bring our truck there, and they will give us copies of both their audio and video signals. And what's fantastic about the fact is that the students can take that into the truck then, and they can actually use those signals to do a mock setup as if they were running that broadcast event. And so that's something that's really interesting, is that not only do we teach how to do this stuff and how to act in the environment, but we get your hands on the equipment itself. And that's a huge part about CRAS, is that we want you to use the equipment that you're going to be using in the industry. So when you get there, you're not going to be too confused on what's out there. All right, so we're going to end this first segment. We're going to go to the second segment, and we'll talk more about broadcasts, and we'll see you then.
CRAS is the premier audio recording, sound engineering, and music production school. The place where you can follow your dream of a career in the recording arts. Sound and music are all around us. It's in the games we play, on our portable devices, on the radio, TV, and in the movies we watch. Where does it all come from? Who makes all of this sound and music? CRAS people make it.
All right, so welcome to our second segment. At the very end, I talked a little bit about broadcast and the role that an A1 would have. I want to talk more about that role and kind of give you an idea of what a student doing A1 or someone in the industry being an A1 would have to deal with. And so here we have a large format console. And the one thing you'll notice about the console is that every single fader, which controls the volume of a specific signal, is labeled, right? And they have certain labels here pertaining to what that signal is. So we can actually see that one says net L, so that's the net on the left side of the court. We have the net R, which is the net on the right-hand side of the court. And you got to really think about it. So does that mean there is a microphone on those nets? And the answer is yes. And there was A2s that actually helped set that up. So the A2s, they will put microphones in these specific areas. And whenever you watch a basketball game, you'll hear the swoosh of the basketball going through the hoop. And that's captured by the microphone that was there capturing that sound. Otherwise, the whole point is that this is supposed to be very immersive for the listener, right? And so if you're at home and you're watching a game, you want to hear the sound of the nets. You want to hear the sound of the shoes squeaking. So for example, there are microphones going down the court that actually help capture the sound of the shoes squeaking. And so we can bring those up. You can start hearing more of that. And the big picture here is that when you're at home, you want to feel as if you're there. You want it to be very immersive. And so the goal of the A1 is to give that experience out to the watchers of the event and have them have that same immersive feeling as if you were there at the game. So another fader here actually controls the commentator. And if I bring this up, we can then hear the commentator talking and explaining what's going on. And you got to remember, this is all happening in real time. So if something exciting happens, what's going to happen is that the engineer is going to have to bring up the crowd, right? So the crowd's exciting, and it's more in that moment, so something exciting's happening. And then as soon as the excitement kind of slowed down a little bit, we got to hear the commentator, so they might bring the commentator's voice up louder. So in real time, they're making constant changes to what you're listening to. So another thing that you would think about that's not specifically the players or the action at the game itself, but any details we see go across the screen here. And you'll notice that there'll be maybe the scoreboard, or there might be like a commercial upcoming or something like that. There also is audio for that. And so when you see like Fox Sports and things fly by, we have faders over here that also control those sound effects. And so the one thing is like, well, then how do we know when we are supposed to add those effects in or not based on when that image is going to go by? And so when we have the different visuals go by and the different sound effects happen, our cue is actually from the producer. And so we see here, we got speakers. I could turn this up, get an example of that. See here.
Oh, nice pass.
Oh, there it is. And so for the producer, the idea here is that the producer is going to be telling us when we need to be doing these things. Because as the audio engineer, the A1, you need those cues. Like, all right, just so you know, like this transition's coming in. Okay, great. Then I will be prepared to move those faders up on the right perfect moment to make sure that happens. And so all of this is directed by a producer as the A1 engineer is doing the actual work on the console itself. And so it's all a team. So it's all a big team. Everybody works together to get a desired result. So one last thing to mention here, as we can see, we got the Model 210 and this headset here. So this is the same equipment you would use in the actual industry, and this is what we teach our students on. All right, we'll go to the next segment, and we'll see you there.
Crass graduates have earned hundreds of gold and platinum records, received Grammys, and engineered audio for major films and television shows. In fact, the music you're listening to right now was created and produced by Crass students as part of their hands-on Crass education. To learn more about what it means to be Crass, visit crass.edu for videos, teacher bios, curriculum, and more. Be Crass. Be secure in your skills and without a mountain of debt.
All right, so here we are in a third segment. So I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about live sound. So prior to this, we were talking about broadcast and what the A1 would have to do in broadcast events like that. Well, live sound, remember that when it comes down to live sound, I kind of mentioned this in the first segment, is that this is when sound is put out for an audience to hear live, okay, hence the phrase live sound. So some of the facets of audio where you'll find this at or different locations is number one I always think of is worship. And so at churches, all churches need to have audio engineers. They need an A1, they need an A2. So all the audio signals going to different speeches or the band's playing, they need to be going through an A1 to make that happen. So another concept too is like corporate audio. And so if there's audio and speeches at hotels, because companies can buy out rooms at hotels and get ballrooms to do speeches, and so they actually have to have an A1 and A2s to help for those events also. So I would say the most common one you think of is concerts, right? And so in live sound, you think of a big concert and the speakers and everyone's there listening to the bands play and everything. So an example of something that the front of house engineer would do is they'd be on the console that would actually be sending those audio signals for the crowd to listen to. So here we have the M32 console. And all these faders here are pertaining to specific microphones that are on the drum set, for example. So here we can hear a kick. And then I bring this up, we can hear the snare. And the other cymbals. And the one thing is like, well, how do you fit an entire band if you don't have enough faders? And so we have what's called a bank. And so what's great about banks is that I can actually go through, because right now we're on 1 through 8. Well, if I go to the next bank, this now turns into 9 through 16. It's the next 8. And these have their own signals that pertain to what those microphones are on. And so this is how an engineer is able to have a small area, but they have multiple rows of faders that can work in conjunction like that. So it's one of the great ways that you're able to kind of keep a huge show together, but still have a lot of audio signals in a small package, right? So once again, this is some of the equipment that the students are getting taught on and using. And actually, we have a 6,000 square foot live sound venue. And in that live sound venue, students will actually be working with live bands in those rooms and actually seeing how it really would be and working with these musicians and these artists and setting up the sound for a big show. So like I said, it's a 6,000 square foot live sound venue. So it's definitely the real deal. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to Joe Morrison Friends, and we'll see you in the next segment. Thanks. Morris and Friends Band, and they were there in that 6,000 square foot live sound venue that we just talked about in the previous segment. And you can see, like, we bring in professional musicians for the students to work with. And this is a big thing, is that working as a team, that's a big deal here at Crass. And when we're talking about all these people coming together and working on these different bands and different big events like that. So one thing we always like to say here is Crass is that it's like a big family here, right? So when these different groups are coming together to work as a team and different students, their goal is like-minded. They're all working together to get a desired result. And like once again, they work as a team to get that result. And so if you thought that that live sound event sounded good, well, students did that, right? And so I do want to talk about some of our other groups here. That's a collection of students that come together to help other people. And so we have what's called the mentorship team. And the mentors here at Crass, this is actually students who are further into the program who are doing well, that actually help students who are earlier in the cycles, that are newer into the program, to help them with the curriculum or any information like that. And so we can see a picture here of some of the mentorship team. And they're here to, once again, help other students that are might be struggling with the curriculum. And these students have been there, done that. So for them, it's like, oh, cool, I've already dealt with this, and here's how I succeeded, and they can share their tips and tricks. So one thing that we like to do for the mentors to show our appreciation is that there's what's called a letter of recommendation. And so at the end of cycle 12, as long as they're on the team still, from that point they join until the end, we will give them a letter of recommendation. And this here is signed by the Director of Education, which is Brock, and then I also sign it as an academic coordinator. And this is, I look at this as being another arrow in the quiver to help you get a job for the resume. So some of the other groups that we have here, so besides the mentorship team, we also have WOA, which is the Women of Audio. So women actually make up a small percentage of the audio industry, and so we have the Women of Audio group to help support that. And this will help give more networking opportunities to the Women of Audio here at the school. And then finally, we have the AES group. So this is Audio Engineering Society. And AES actually started in 1948, so it's been around a long time. But what's awesome is that here at Crass, we have the busiest student chapter in the world here at this school, which is quite incredible. So, thanks you talking about the different segments and everything. I appreciate you joining for all these. So we're going to leave it at that. I appreciate you stopping by and watching the show, and we'll see you soon. Take care.